Welcome to Dubai Real Estate Unplugged, brought to you by the team here at House and House Real Estate. As always, I'm Luke Remington, Managing Director for the House and House Group, and today we're joined by the company Sales Director Charles Bannon, or Charlie Bannon, which one do you prefer?
Charlie.
Okay, Charlie.
The correct one, mate.
And Leasing Director Tom Paulson, or Thomas Paulson. Today we're going to be discussing highlights of Q1 2023 and generally what we saw on the shop floor. We've got 20 plus market reports going live today also, which will be dropped into the show notes. So our listeners can delve a bit deeper if there's anything that they don't hear and they'd maybe like to see later on. As always, we try to give you an overview of what's going on in the market, but also tell you what we're seeing at House and House, and we're just a small percentage of what is going on. But Q1 highlights, let's look at it as an overview. So we got 30,898 transactions in the quarter. Now, to give the listeners some idea, this is overview, so it's not just House and House, this is everyone, and that's a 50+% increase on Q1 of 2022. So we've seen a 50% increase on sales transactions. It's a combined value of 88 billion, which is 60% increase on the same period of last year also. So again, we've got a 50 and 60% increase. And to break those numbers down, we've got about 23,000 apartments, high number there. 5,500 villas, and then we got just under 1,000 commercial and 1,500 plots. So that breaks it all down. Charles, maybe before we go into it, quick, give us a bit of summary about you.
So myself, I've been in Dubai and with House and House since June 2016, 7 years.
Okay.
Initially working in the leasing department, then sales, subsequently leasing director, and now sales director. Nice.
And Tom, quickly go over to you. I know you've been on the podcast recently, but just in case.
I have. So myself, I've been at House and House since November 2016. So shortly after Charlie. Went through leasing, sales, and also then I filled the shoes of Charlie Bannon in March 2020. So just over 3 years in the role.
Brilliant. So we've got lots of expertise in the house. So it's been a record quarter. I don't really like saying that because I think it just constantly record. And I think rather than all pat ourselves on the back, there's records going around every single brokerage in Dubai and developer. So although we're extremely proud that, the Dubai market is booming in general, so we should be making hay while the sun shines. So record quarter. How's the quarter gone for you both? So anything interesting what we've seen, Charlie? Give us a summary of Q1 2023 in House and House.
I think, like you say, it's been a repetitive theme over the past 2 years. Records being broke, high number of transactions, prices rising. So I think it's probably more just a continuance of what we've already seen. It just seems to keep building, which is really good and creates a really busy environment and really good sentiment from buyers and sellers in the market.
Is there anything in particular that you've seen maybe differences between Q1 this year and Q4 of 2022? Or maybe even if we go into general, let's say 2022, are we hearing anything from buyers or sellers? Are buyers now thinking, well, is it the right time to buy? A price is too high. Are sellers thinking, oh, should I now sell because prices are going to drop?
I suppose the only thing that's really changed is that towards the end of last year, there was a bit of uncertainty about mortgage rates continuing to rise, but they seem to have steadied off now.
Okay.
So I think that's probably the only big change. I think rents have continued to increase, which creates a lot of end user buyers in the market. So I wouldn't say anything's necessarily changed other than the fact that mortgage rates seem to have stabilised a little bit and in some instances come down.
Okay. Anything we're hearing about the dollar and, some issues going on globally about, is that people thinking, well, I don't want to keep my money in the bank and let's buy?
Yeah, I mean, I think there seems to be like a stir underneath everything, like a sense of something could happen, something big could happen. But again, no one really knows what that is. That's the sense that I get. So it's like, it's not ignorance, but I don't think anyone knows the answer.
No.
But I think everyone is maybe a little bit cautious that across the world, something could happen on a large scale, but no one can really put a finger on it to say, this is going to happen and this is when it's going to happen. So it creates that uncertainty. But I think the good thing about Dubai is that, coming back to the sentiment, it is really, really strong as it been the economy and as a place to live. And it seems to continue to grow. So is it ignored? I wouldn't say so, but there's definitely like a shadow underneath.
Yeah, for sure. There's got to be a lot of buyers out there, you know, for sure, that have probably looked at the amount of funds that they have in their banks, wherever they are in the world. And the banks can guarantee or support you to a certain amount by the central bank. So there's got to be a lot of people that are thinking, well, do they want to be in a position where potentially they could lose some money, or is it safer to have it in a property or gold or silver or you know, or different aspects out there? Thomas, when we last spoke, we spoke about high demand and high prices. What have you seen in 2023, quarter one?
Same trends.
Okay.
Hasn't dipped off, to be honest with you, the pricing. What we're noticing a little bit more now is that especially in the communities where there's a mixture of, especially villa communities, I would say, where there's a mixture of high-end villas. I'm talking the 400,000 dirham a year plus, you talk so around £80,000 a year circa. We're noticing at that level that we are seeing properties sit now a little bit more empty. It feels almost like it has reached a ceiling in certain communities. Okay. Because if you talked about this 6 months ago, they were slightly lower pricing. We wouldn't have vacant villas.
Yeah.
We were getting tenants for them 2 months in advance and so on. Naturally, as the prices, and it's well documented and published in the media, and we've spoken about it as we touching upon now, that the price is increasing, owners naturally try and capitalise on that.
Yeah.
And I think it has to reach a ceiling at some point. And it perhaps suggests to me that in certain parts of communities where the more affordable end, it's still continuing to rise.
Yeah.
But at the higher end, in like if you want to call that a luxury segment within a community,
yeah,
it seems to be a case of now people, especially who've lived there historically in that community, see it as overpriced.
Okay.
And we now have, for instance, I'll use Arabian Ranches as an example. Right now, we probably have around 6 to 10 empty villas at over 400,000 dirham a year plus mark. And 6 months ago, we wouldn't have had that because they were around the 350 section. So it suggests to me that it could mean that some places have hit a sort of ceiling, which is still a high price compared to historically. But
okay, so if I am looking in these kind of 300 plus thousand, there basically is more for me to choose from.
More for you to choose from.
Sorry to interrupt, are owners now or landlords accepting that the property has gone on the market, and whereas they would have had a flurry of activity within the first couple of days and it's gone, are now hearing, well, no, we haven't had any offers, or we've done a few viewings? Are they now being a bit more realistic?
I think we'll be able to pinpoint that more over this next month or so because we approach the summer months.
Yeah.
And that's naturally, I think, especially this year where travel is definitely way more free than it has been historically in the last couple of years due to obviously COVID and so on. I think that, I don't think there's going to be a mass exodus from Dubai by any means.
Yeah.
But I think that naturally it can go a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
During them summer months, typically families go back home or so on. And I think that that's kind of the conversations we're having with owners, that look, we don't want to miss the boat here. I don't want it to be empty for another month, 2 months or so on. So I think that we'll see a lot of owners probably, we've tried it. We tried to go for the highest price possible, but ultimately it's no good to anybody empty.
Yeah.
So these are the conversations we're having to have. So I do think that I'm talking like needs just a 5% correction. It's not major, but I just think in some I don't want to call it greedy, but of course, if you were just hearing completely positive news all the time, you're going to try for the highest. You try, it hits a ceiling. That's what the market dictates.
Yeah, yeah.
And it suggests to us that in some areas we are hitting ceilings at that level.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting.
But at the more affordable levels in them, they're continuing to rise, and because there's people that are having to downsize and so on, which we'll touch upon later, and they're flying off still. We barely have any empty. We're crying out for them sort of properties, more affordable ones.
I think, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, about 40,000 units to be handed over in 2023, which of course is going to hopefully help the kind of the demand when you put a bit of supply into the market. Just touching, you touched about the months that we've got ahead now. So we're in April, we're going into May, June, we're going into the hotter months. If you are a tenant listening, is it a good time to maybe start looking and moving?
To be honest with you, for sure.
Is it better than quarter one?
Me personally, I would be thinking, if I'm seeing empty properties out there, I'm going to try and negotiate the best deal, because logic suggests that why would anybody want a property empty? Now, we can't go into personal circumstance of owner, that's none of our business, but a lot of investors out there, if they're not making money on their property, if they actually have the intention of renting it out, they're going to need to get a return on that investment. So, yeah, I would say, to be historically, I've been in the role, I said 3 years, we have busy months every single month. There's no real trend to when we have less tenants moving and so on. But as we do approach the summer months, people like to get everything boxed off before they leave. So I would say this quarter particularly, we'll probably see quite a high drive, and it has actually historically been a really good quarter for us.
Okay.
Because people don't want to be looking for properties as much in the summer. It's very hot. They don't want to be going around empty villas. They plan on going away for up to 2 months at a time. They want to know that when the school terms start, or typically when jobs tend to be, new jobs, people start in that line with that September, that they want to have everything finalised and so on before then.
Yeah, all makes sense. Charles, would you say the same from a buyer's point of view? Are you going to see a flurry of activity going forwards from what you've seen quarter one, where, as I say, we're all high-fiving and everything's great? Probably slightly different to what Tom's seen, where at the higher end we're seeing prices stable. Luxury market in sales is booming from what we read. Is that true?
Yes, I think turnkey property. I think the word luxury is hard to define. Is it a price point? Is it how the property looks? But I think that turnkey properties, ready to move in, renovated, certainly fetching very, very good prices.
That was actually a comment that I heard the other day about flipping.
Yeah.
Is it happening?
Yeah, for sure.
What is flipping?
Depends. It's probably different levels of it, right? Someone who's literally looking just to buy, renovate and sell.
Yeah.
Someone who's potentially looking to buy. I'd argue that someone with the plan to buy an off-plan property and then sell it before it hands over or at handover would be flipping. But I think that the biggest shift that we've seen, or we see more contractors in the market now renovating homes, making them turnkey, and then being sold to someone looking to move to Dubai, or someone that's in Dubai as a resident looking to buy something that's been fully renovated.
So whereas people were previously talking about flipping and saying, flipping to me, 2008, I buy the property today and I sell it for 10, 20% more the next day or within a week. This is not what we're seeing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's a bit more thought that goes into it, and I think that what the contractors and if a buyer was looking to buy to flip, they're trying to meet the demand of someone that doesn't want to buy a house and renovate it themselves and babysit a contractor arguably for 1 to 4 months, and they understand the premium and they're willing to pay the premium.
It's also helped with coming out of COVID. We've been at a low point in the market. We've seen properties that are 10, 15, 20 years old that need updated bathrooms, kitchens, these kind of things. People have bought these properties. They then spent a couple of million on them. They then, over the course of a year, and they then sold it for significantly higher. So not only have you got the renovations to take into consideration and the expense gone into that, you've also then got a year or two of the market increasing. Couple that together, and then you can see a price of a purchase price initially at say 3 million, and then a sale price at say 7 or 8 million. But that's what needs to be taken into consideration, that it's the market was at its lowest point, and then we've had 2 years of growth, plus we've had the renovations going on. Is that's where people maybe are getting confused and wondering, well, how has it gone up so much?
Yeah, it's definitely a combination, and naturally there's an element of risk. If you were to buy something today with the intent to put X amount into it, to renovate and to flip, and the market shifts, you could be sitting with egg on your face. Yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of people coming out and they're not really investors as such? They have their 9 till 5 or 9 till 6 job, but maybe they're thinking, well, I can see a lot of money's being made in the real estate market. Are you finding that a husband and wife can say, well, I'm going to go and buy that and I'm going to make a few million over the course of the next year by buying it cheap, or maybe not as cheap as it once was, but renovating it as a hobby, basically?
It's probably a discussion that most couples or individuals have with their friends. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
That you can make money in real estate. That's the best thing to do. The percentage of people that actually do it versus talk about it around the table is probably quite small. But the ones that do it, I wouldn't say they're savvy real estate professionals or investors. They are just giving it a go to a certain degree. Okay. Maybe through friends that have had a good experience, or they'll be the first one to pioneer it in their group. But Yeah, certainly there's people that give it a go, and it probably comes back to what you were saying at the beginning about leaving money in a bank. Even if you take away the security aspect of, well, it could disappear if the bank folds, even if it doesn't disappear, it's still sitting there earning very little interest. So alternative investments, such as property or any asset, is arguably worth the risk.
Yeah. So we've got a combination of people wanting to come into Dubai because they see it as the place to be at the moment, and maybe their home country's not doing as well as what they would hoped. You've got people buying properties because they want to buy properties to make money. You've got people buying properties because they want to invest here and have the money that's not in the bank. So there's a catalyst of drivers that is still pushing up, not just the luxury segment, but all segments that you've seen in quarter 1 2023.
Yeah.
Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, and you combine that with the government's efforts to make it easier to become a resident, easier to open a business, continuing to be one of the safest places in the world. Like the combination of the two things is just, as you say, creating a catalyst of really strong sentiment and strong results from the market.
Do you know what, just adding to that, with the government incentives and new policies, one of Charlie's friends came in the office the other day, and I actually thought he was there for an interview, and I thought, God, he's going to be good at this, but it turns out he's just come out with his family, wants to get away from London, whatever reason, safety and just, I guess, standard of living. And his company from the UK are allowing him to work remotely from Dubai, and we're seeing that so much, especially like for tenants as well. This is why demand will always be there, regardless of more supply coming in my opinion. Great, yeah, of course it balances out prices and so on, but the demand is just going to keep continuing because we get so many people now that can just be based there for 6 months and get a visa, allowing to work if you can use Zoom or whatever video call conference you use, and they can now enjoy the beautiful sunshine all year round here and work here, get the benefits from having this lifestyle, which everyone, of course, we know eventually does love here, and that's why we stay here. And that never used to be back pre-COVID. That I've never heard of anyone working remotely from Dubai. And now it's so popular.
Yeah.
And as we said, with the investor visas, entry level price points quite low to be able to get visa all the way up from 2 to 10 years. Dubai's making a real conscious effort to keep people here. It's not just that typical come in 2 years, earn your money, get out. Yeah. That was kind of like not what we were sold as, obviously, back then, but that was your mindset. That's what you heard of. You go in, earn your money, work hard, and off you go home. Yeah. Whereas now, I think people now look at this as we're all sat here, me and Charlie, similar age. He is older than me, 3 years, I think. And we've got no plans to go home.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you think, well, I'll give it a year, see how it goes. If it, as part of my short plan, tell all your mates, yeah, I'll be back in a couple of years, and your family. But 6.5 years, 7 years on, it's like you can see why now you look at this long term.
Yeah.
And it is, you can afford to buy here. It's not just this place where it's all luxury or high-end properties. Like there is affordable homes, and there is, that entry level for the average person as well. So
yeah, I saw some properties, Charlie, and there was still some good post-handover payment plans, such as Expo City, which I know is being kind of announced in the last quarter. Have you seen any activity going on in places like that?
I think, yeah, for sure. I think anything with post-handover payment plan being released now causes attraction because it's really, really rare. I think Emaar launched something in Dubai Creek maybe this week, and I think it's either like 80-20 or 90-10 during construction. So
which two people, 90-10, what does that mean?
90% during construction, okay. 10% on handover.
Okay. So basically, by the time you got the keys, you'll have had to pay the 100%.
Yeah, it's cash buyers essentially. Someone looking to buy with finance at the time of handover is pretty much ruled out.
Okay.
So it only attracts someone who can continue those cash payments during the construction to actually hand over on the property. So like with Expo, for example, I think handover's 2 years, and then the post handover payment plan spans another 3 years. So it's a 5-year payment plan. And it's pretty affordable for most people that are doing relatively well for themselves in Dubai. It would be okay to continue those payments throughout. And I think the attraction with something like that is that a lot of people are going to say that's too far away. But at the same time, when we're going back to people talking about real estate investors, that might spark something in their mind to say, well, if no one else likes it, the government have backed it, they've already spent the money on the infrastructure, I should probably do that because it's not what everyone else is doing. And I think that's when you speak to people that have invested in real estate and made a lot of money, They don't consider the opinion of everyone else. They try to maybe look at the things that people aren't doing, because arguably that's a rumour, and that's where potentially you could have more upside.
Buy on the rumour, sell on the news.
No, I like that, Tom. Isn't this the old kind of cliche that we heard 5 years ago? It's too far out. But doesn't it's too far out then at some stage become not too far out? Because it's too far out because there isn't a mall close by, and then a mall gets built, and then it's maybe not as far out. And, you know, Dubai keeps building out. So whereas we look at Expo City, is it too far out? And in 10 years, we'll be saying it's not too far out.
I don't think it is too far out. I think the city is growing wider. I think it has to. There's lots of sand to be built on. And I think more importantly, it's the infrastructure around the community. If there's metro access, nothing's too far out because you jump on the metro. And I think if you look at the development as a whole, it's probably a longer conversation, but if you look at the development as a whole, I think the sort of person that would live and reside in that community as a tenant or as a homeowner, I think that would suit them being able to get the metro in and out. So I think that the community is quite exciting. I think there is an opportunity there.
And also, look, on that, you own an Arabian. How long have you owned in Arabian ranches for?
2014.
And back then, I bet how many times did people tell you that's too far out?
Yeah, ridiculous amount.
And now what would they say?
I didn't even think it was too far out back then.
No, because you're used to
being on a train
in the UK, like half an hour to an hour commutes, even more. I guess Dubai makes you, everything's so accessible, and you want
the RTA do a fantastic job about expanding. You know, we went from having 2 or 3 lanes to now 5 or 6. So a commuting distance to Mall of Emirates would have been, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes, has then come down to 15 minutes.
And these cities that are very established, and obviously places like London, nowhere in London would you go, that's too far out. 'Cause you're like, too far out from what? And that's what Dubai will become. They'll have different areas within Dubai.
Yeah.
Too far from what, the Expo area, because that's where people want to be. Too far up from downtown. Too far from the villa communities like Arabian Ranches, that Al Qudra corridor. Like that's how it will be in the future. It won't just too far out from now for people is maybe the beach.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's not going to be in the long term. That's how these investors who purchase in these areas, which are deemed as far out, they see the bigger picture, and that's where they make their money, because in the future they know that will be an established community where people want to be.
Yeah, yeah.
There's always a reason. I remember in 2017 taking people to the Dubai Hills Estate sales office to purchase maple sidra and whatnot, and people walk out and go, "That's crazy, it's too expensive."
Yeah.
And it's just like, look at what the prices have done since handover, and that as a community now, if they could wind back the clock, they'd purchase it in a heartbeat.
Are people buying, interesting you say heartbeat, are people buying in a heartbeat at the moment with very little information? But it's that kind of, to me it feels a bit like the kind of the Bitcoin era where it was kind of $60,000 where, you know, the world and his wife were buying Bitcoin, but they actually, like myself, we didn't really know what was going on with Bitcoin. We just knew you paid an amount of money for a digital currency, but everyone's getting involved in it. You stop someone, everyone in the street knows about it. I get that feeling with real estate at the moment that no matter where you are in the world, it's come across your eyes at some stage, and people are getting in touch with little information, no family here, and thinking, well, why don't we have something here, tax-free, in 7-8%? Are you seeing that, Charlie?
I think it's such a traditional investment. Like, everyone grows up knowing I need to buy a house one day, and everyone grows up knowing that if I have multiple properties, I'll probably be considered wealthy, and I've got income coming in, and that would help me become rich or wealthy. I think the new age of it is someone in the UK going, I'm going to buy a house in Dubai because I've heard the returns are good. So that's where maybe like the Bitcoin element comes into it. So it's still a traditional way of investing your money, but it's a new era of, I'm not going to look at my local community in Kent, I'm actually going to branch out and do something in Dubai, which maybe I've never seen before, I don't really understand, but I'm willing to take that risk based on everyone telling me it's a good idea, or me hearing about the returns, or my broker telling me it's an amazing investment opportunity.
Yeah, and I think as well, even just on that subject, even from personal point of views, is that when you're looking, say that you already live here, and you're looking for a property yourself to purchase, I think decisions are made very quickly, because there's not very many vacant properties out there in certain communities that are sitting there with tenants, as we know. Well, the audience may not know this, but you have to give a year's notice to a tenant to have them evicted from the property if you're moving in yourself. A lot of people, especially end users, aren't prepared to wait a year. Okay, so actually finding a vacant property in your price point, because then it's difficult. And from personal experience looking for property to purchase it, you have to make a very snap judgment as soon as one comes available, because otherwise there's probably a queue of 10 people that are going to be in line to buy that. So things move so fast out here, decisions are made quick, and like we said, it's all about using a reputable company as well to advise you that that is a good purchase or so on. But yeah, if you're lucky to find something vacant, usually it's got a premium price on it because of that. So if you find one at a good price, they fly off.
Yeah, no, interesting. With the Bitcoin scenario, we saw a crash. Are you hearing that from any buyers saying, I've missed the boat, I'm going to wait? Or on the other hand, from what you're telling me, I'll just buy a bit further out and it's cheaper and I get a post-payment and handover payment plan, and in 10 years it won't be too far out?
People have been saying it for the last 18 months.
Okay.
Like someone will be right, but I think that a lot of people try to time the market, but I think the best thing to consider is timing the market. I think that's how you're going to make sustainable returns over a prolonged period of time. No one can time the market perfectly, but I think if you spend enough time in the market, you'll always have some upside because it's real estate, and traditionally that does well.
Yeah, we would never advise someone to purchase a property to guarantee them a return in 2 years. We can never know what the market will do. But if you're prepared to sit on it long term, you will always win eventually, right?
Yeah, interesting.
So you just got to make sure that you can afford to have that long term, and it always wins property. And that goes back to your question of why do people put money into property instead of external things? Because it's tangible, you know it's there, you can see it. And for me, that's security. And they are maybe better investments out there in terms of returns, but the risk side is so much more upside.
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, like you said, if you've got that still in 10 years, you're probably a winner.
So, Charlie, we talked about what's gone on, and we're looking at the quarter one highlights. It is our biggest quarter ever. And like I said, I don't like to bang the drum too much on that because I think there's a lot of brokerages celebrating with us, which is great news. But what are the possible reasons for this? I actually was having a coffee with a lady who comes from a part of the world that I used to live in, and she told me that she was leaving Dubai. And I think, looking back at my expression, I was like, you what? You're leaving Dubai? Are you insane? I can't ever remember saying that to someone. And I know, Tom, you deal with a lot of leasing landlords and tenants, and there's a lot of people that come and go. But for me, it was just, are you why? Are you mad? What is going on? But what is the reason that we have celebrated our best quarter at House and House in 10 years?
The market, naturally.
Yeah.
I think your friend that you're discussing there, she can leave Dubai, but she can still buy a house in Dubai.
Yeah.
She could still invest from Wales, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
into the Dubai market. So again, that could still help us generate revenue. I think coupled with where we're at as a business, if you compare the sales team from today to this time last year, we're now sitting at over 90 residential sales consultants. Mm-hmm. They've all got more experience. They're all more familiar with the market, all more familiar with the process. So a bit like we were saying about the real estate investors for flipping, it's like a few things coming together for it to go up. It's the same for us as a business.
Yeah.
The market's doing really well. The team's really strong. It's only growing. And all of the reasons behind that, of what the government incentives, developers bringing new projects to market, rents being high, buyers needing to maybe choosing to buy a home as opposed to rent because arguably it's cheaper, the mortgage rate stabilising for the first time in a few months. Like, I think all of these things together, again, just come back to the sentiment of, well, I should just buy a house. And I think that's what's working well.
Yeah. Tom, I looked at the data. You were moving on average 170 families per month along with your team. What were you seeing on the ground in the first quarter?
It's just very busy, very busy. It's people always wait to make decisions to procrastinate to the new year, don't they? A lot of the time, I'll do that in the new year. Yeah. That was out the first quarter, and we always have busy. To be honest, we're busy for the last 2 years, flat out post-COVID. And I think that linking with what Charlie said is that we've grown as a team. I've got over approaching 60 brokers in the team now. Naturally, there's a lot of inexperience that comes through because we get people to come through the leasing team first, generally, to learn the foundation of how this job works. But I think with that, it's kind of like the analogy of we were speaking about, when people renovate homes, make them nicer. That's kind of like what we've done as a business.
Yeah.
We've got more recruiters, we've got more trainers, we've got nicer offices and better, bigger marketing teams to all support us as a business. And so we've kind of renovated our own house as such and improved processes. And as a bigger company, we need to refine them processes, and we do it really well. So the quality, we get so many CVs, the quality of broker that comes through from day one is better than it ever has been. The training is better, in my opinion, than it ever has been as well, as we have them dedicated roles. So we have an after training program as well for 3 months.
Yeah.
So they really are looked after, and we're getting a wealth of knowledge, and that does naturally improve performance and the customer experience, the most important thing, because that's how we know how we get our business.
Yeah.
But it's rental prices are going up. A lot of demand still here.
Yeah.
Naturally, then that helps us as a business, and that is why we have done very, very well in the first quarter.
Makes sense. I like how you said we've renovated our house. I think that's there's been a lot of
a little bit cliche.
Yeah, but we have. There's been a lot of time and effort that's gone into House and House, and I think you touched on the marketing team, which is around 25 people strong, and there's a series of different professions within this, going from social media to SEO people to videographers to.
I know, and on that, I think a lot of the brokers might naively or ignorantly sit and wonder what they do if they don't understand how the insides of a business work. But I always try and put this in perspective. For instance, we had a campaign that went out the other day. We've got a lovely brand new building in Port Delamere, lovely place in Dubai that we've got exclusive 40 units. Christian in our marketing team, brand campaign manager, he's got access then to about 60,000 contacts that he sent was relevant to that price point in our database. As we've been here since 2013, we've got a lot of data in there, a lot of clients, and that's the power of having that marketing team. And not even having to, and I'll get brokers join us from other companies, and they tell me about conversations that they're having with landlords and people now that it's foreign to them, because before that, if they were at a smaller company or a less well-known company, they were almost having to have arguments about even getting their foot in the door, because the landlord didn't know who they were, which company. There's that lack of trust from day one, whereas we've got the awards and so on, and so have other companies, which is great. But the fact is that we have these, our brand awareness is the reach of it is so far that when we speak to someone, it's a very, very small chance that they've not heard of House and House, and they can easily look us up and see with the credibility behind us. And that helps us as a business tenfold, and that is very massively down to that marketing team. So they do a great job with that to support the brokers.
Agree.
So it all works.
Dubai is booming. This room is getting hot. I don't know whether we've got an AC issue. We're running out of time, but thanks as always to our listeners today. I hope we've managed to give you an insight to what's going on. It's been a pleasure to share our insights and great stories with you. And like I said initially, we've got 20 plus market reports, so you can delve deeper on that or get in touch if there's any questions or information that you require. Lots of topics to discuss. There's always a lot to go on in the Dubai property market. So please don't forget to subscribe, whatever channel you're listening on, so you're notified when we drop new episodes. You can follow us at House and House on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And we also release a monthly newsletter with all our latest updates and insights, which you can access from our website. We include all the links in the show notes. Talk soon.